But then when we got our first mail call, my dad sent me a letter, and it was just like he had actually wrote that letter in the hotel the night before they dropped me off.
Oh,
And
I'm gonna cry.
yeah, I know. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But I remember seeing him up writing it. I didn't really know what he was over there writing. And then like I got the letter like second week of basic training.
Today on the show, former Naval Academy and NFL football player Cameron Kinley is up next. Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Adams, and this is where we dive deep into the world of sports, talking with retired athletes, current athletes, and everyone that makes the sports world great. A quick reminder, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, make a note after this show, subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch. You can find all the information at 5thquarterpodcast.com. Now, grab your iced tea or your coffee because I'm from the South. Get ready to be motivated and inspired because this is where the real stories are told. Now, let me introduce you to today's guest. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and a former NFL football player. Currently, he's a motivational speaker, a Naval Intelligence Officer, and the author of the book, Identity, Finding Purpose Through the Storm. Welcome to the show, Cameron Kinley.
Hey, thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that introduction, and I appreciate you for having me. Excited for the conversation today.
Absolutely. What I did not put in the intro was you are from Memphis.
I am. Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised.
That's right. That's right. And I actually found out about you, strangely enough, my ex-father-in-law was a retired Marine.
Okay.
And my ex went to the Naval Academy for only a year. And I've always been, and my brother was in the Air Force, so I've always kind of been like a fan of the Navy. And I had a lot in school. I was political science, so I had a lot of naval officers that were coming back or enlisted men coming back to go to officer candidate school and those things. So I've always had that connection. And I've been to Annapolis. We kind of talked about that. I've toured the place, and it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
But I had been following Keenan Reynolds when he played at Navy when I lived in Houston. And then you came up, and I was always about, when did you start at the Naval Academy?
So I got to the Naval Academy in 2017, the fall of 2017.
So I was still in Houston, and I'm always looking for that connection back to Memphis.
Yeah.
And so you naturally was like, okay, now I'm going to root for him. Okay. He's from Memphis, going to the Naval Academy. And so I've just kind of followed your story as we've gone along. And then when I started this podcast, you were on my list as one of the people that I wanted to talk to because you've had an interesting trajectory of your career. And I wanted to really get into that. But then, as I was telling you off camera, I was researching you yesterday, and I found out your dad is from Paris, Tennessee.
Good old Paris.
Exactly. And I grew up literally like 20 minutes from there, and we're the same age. So please tell your dad hello. I don't think I've ever met him, but anyway, I love that connection. That's
small
going
world.
there. It is
Definitely a small world.
Now, I have not read your book yet. I did read some of it, and I'm looking forward to reading it because I've kind of followed your career. But I want to start this conversation with a quote that you have on the book. And it says, when you're doing something for over 80% of your life, it becomes a piece, if not the majority of your identity. For you, was that football, obviously, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's not even something that I realized until I stopped playing football, to be honest with you. But started playing football when I was 5 years old. And then since then, it was just the common near the end of the summer, you're starting to work out. And then the fall is full of football every Saturday. And then the off season, you're working out, and that's your life. And whether you realize it or not, your life's revolving around it. And you don't really realize it until it's gone. But yeah, football was definitely a major piece of my life.
Now, your dad and I believe your brothers also played football. So was that kind of the reason you got into that sport then, was kind of their influence?
Yeah, so my dad grew up Paris, Tennessee, played at Henry County, graduated and went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State, where he played D1 football. And then right after he graduated from college, he started coaching. So he started coaching in Nashville at first with the Una Bears, which is a very prestigious organization there. And then he moved to Memphis, and he was coaching in the Whitehaven League with the Whitehaven Vikings. And then by the time I was like 5, he started his own team, the Memphis Falcons. So brought me and my little brother and my older brother over, and we got to work.
Now, as you went through school, did you ever give another sport any type of consideration?
Yeah, 100%. So I played everything growing up. So my dad wasn't one of those guys where it's like, oh, I play football, so you're gonna play football, you're gonna like it, you're gonna love it, right?
Right.
He gave us options. So I played basketball, played baseball, ran track. It's just football was probably my most gifted sport. And I love football the most. I can't sit here and say I was the best basketball player. So I knew that wasn't my lane. And then I like the golf as well. So my dad got us into golf when we were young. So I enjoyed the other sports, but my dedication to those
Right.
other sports wasn't the same as my dedication to football.
What do you think led you to have that dedication to football?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely probably some family bias in there with my dad
Mhm.
playing, my older brother playing. But what I found to attach me to the game of football was probably the concept of going through adversity and learning how to develop as a man and develop as a leader on the football field and going through tough times and feeling the joys when you go through it and you're successful, feeling the pain when you go through it and you're unsuccessful, but identifying the lessons through it all. I think that helped me grow up as a man and just I think football is the greatest teacher for life. Honestly, the parallel, the next play mentality. When life's not going the way you want it to, you got to get ready for the next play and try to make a play again. Especially playing DB, having a short term memory, you can have a perfect game, give up a touchdown. Now everybody in the crowd thinks you suck. So you can't belay over that. You got to get over it, get next play mentality, so you can keep moving forward. And I think that translates over to life.
I agree with you because, I see and hear people that wallow in self-pity, something went wrong and it just like overtakes them. And in sports, most of the time, if you want to be successful, you can't let that one error, that one mistake, like, cripple you. You have to move on
Yeah,
and
no
and just
doubt.
get up and go on. I want to talk about you went to high school at Lausanne Collegiate School here in Memphis. And when you went into your freshman year there, what were your thoughts about the future after college? I mean,
Yeah,
after
so
high school.
100%. So, honestly, I was a very undersized freshman coming
Mhm.
into high school. So, my brother at the time was already at the University of Illinois. So he had already kind of I saw what the college recruiting process was like. I saw the work that he put in. So he kind of showed me that it was possible.
Right.
Going to private school, my parents sent all of us to private school. Not that we had a lot of money, they made the sacrifice. So I knew that I wanted to make sure I got a college scholarship so they wouldn't pay for college. So I
Mhm.
saw football as being the best vehicle to do that, coupled with academics. So my mindset going into high school was to get a football scholarship to a top academic school, and then from there go into medicine, be an orthopedic surgeon. That way I can stay around the game of football when I graduate. So that was the goal. Um, and so my whole kind of high school career was geared towards, I was gonna be a pre med guy. I was gonna go into medicine. And then I got to college and I took chemistry and physics, and I was like, maybe not. I was like,
but
that may not be my route.
but you had a plan. I've talked to some guests
100%.
on
Yeah.
here that they didn't have a plan. Like they didn't think about anything. They're just like, I just want to play. Like I just
Yeah.
want to play the sport.
Yeah.
And to heck with whatever else happens. When did you start getting recruited by colleges in high school?
So it was after my junior season. So the first school to reach out to me was the Naval Academy. So Sean Williams, DJ Palmore, Jerry Thompson. It was a lot of Memphis guys on the team at the time. And I'm pretty sure it's a lot of people take credit for it. So I don't really know who got in contact with the naval coach with the Navy coaches, but I talked to Sean Williams, that DJ Palmer, that both of them say they had a hand in it. I don't doubt it. But Coach Ingram, Ashley Ingram, reached out to me, who's now the head coach at Carson Newman.
Mhm.
Great guy. He was the offensive line coach at Navy when he was recruiting me, and he reached out to me. Said, we saw your tape. We like your tape. Like your film. Like we want to extend your offer to go to the United States Naval Academy.
Wow.
So that was actually the day after my birthday. So March 4th, 2016 was my first offer. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really think too much of it because I didn't know much about the Naval Academy. When I saw
Mhm.
Army Navy playing on TV, I honestly thought that they were already in the service, if I'm gonna be honest with you. So I didn't really give it too much mind, but my granddad's a retired Navy chief, so I always heard about his service. I've had some cousins that also served in the Navy, so I had a little bit of familiarity with the
Right.
military. And then teachers and stuff started talking to me about the academies. And that's when I kind of started to realize this is a pretty prestigious institution.
It is, and I think a lot of people think that the people that play on the Navy Army game that
Yeah,
they're really, like
1000%.
yeah, like that, like they're not going to college.
They think you're
Um,
deployed right after the game.
so what was that like? How did you make that decision to go to Navy? Like, how did you make that decision?
Yeah, so my dream school was Vanderbilt. I always tell
Mhm.
people Vanderbilt was where I wanted to go. SEC football, great, medical program,
Right.
close to home. It was like everything was Vanderbilt was perfect for me. So my eyes were set on Vanderbilt. And so going into that summer into my senior year, I think I had once you get one service academy, you basically get the other two. So I
Right.
think the only offers I had at the time were like Navy, Army, and Air Force. And I was talking to Vanderbilt. They came to the school in the spring and they said, hey, like if you come to our camp, you have a good camp, like we'll offer you on the spot. And so in my mind, that was my sole focus that summer is when I go to this Vanderbilt camp, I'm gonna show out and I'm gonna get an offer and I'm gonna commit the
Right.
next day. And so I go to the camp and I kid you not, I have probably the best camp of my life. Like I'm making plays that I'm like, man, I didn't even know I could do that. Like one-hand interceptions, breaking up balls. Like I look like a superstar out there. And after the camp, I'm talking to the coach and I'm waiting for him to give me the offer.
Right.
And he doesn't offer. And he tells me, we want to see some film this fall. And I was a little heartbroken. I'm not going to lie. But that same camp, I had been talking to some of the Ivy League schools. So Yale was at the camp, Coach Lett, who I think is at Arkansas State now. So
Hmm.
right after that, Coach Lett he was with my dad the whole camp. And right after I got done talking to the Vanderbilt coach, I went over to him and my dad, and he offered me right there. And then
Wow.
after Yale offered, yeah, UPenn offered, and like Harvard and Princeton. And then next thing I knew, I looked up and I had all the Ivy League schools. So I started to steer away from Vanderbilt a little bit. Like I was still holding on to it, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna look at going to the Ivies
Right.
because I always told my dad, I said, because he had sent people to play in college to the NFL, but he had never sent a player to play at an Ivy League school. So I always told him growing up, I'm gonna be your first Ivy League football player. Um, and so that kind of was the route that I was thinking. And going into my school year, I wanted to focus on winning the state championship at Lausanne. So I wasn't even thinking about recruitment for real. So I was like, I told all the coaches, I deal with my recruitment after. I took some visits before the school year. I went up and looked at like basically 5 Ivy League schools. I hit Princeton, UPenn, Columbia, and Yale. I visited those 4, I think. And when I visited those 4, Princeton left a good it left a good impression on me. And so I was like, I probably if I had to commit today, I would probably go to Princeton. But like I said, I'm gonna wait till this season. I still had little hopes that Vanderbilt would offer. So I go through the season. We end up winning state championship. Vanderbilt still doesn't offer. So then I'm
Yeah.
running to January. We don't have early signing day at this time. So signing day is first week of February. And so I scheduled 4 visits. I scheduled Air Force, I scheduled Princeton, Yale, and Navy. Those are my 4 visits. And I visit Air Force, and I loved it. I honestly, I loved Air Force. Nice campus in Colorado. Colorado
Hmm.
was beautiful, but playing in the Mountain West, I knew my parents weren't gonna make a lot of games, and I knew that was just a little too far from home for them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not gonna go out here. And then I visit Princeton, and as I'm going to Princeton, I'm like, all right, if everything's good, I'm committing. But when I visited again, it didn't fit right. It didn't feel right. I felt like I was going just for the name. And, Ivies don't offer full ride scholarships. So I was
Right.
this kind of defeats the purpose. My parents are like, oh, we don't mind if we were paying, but I was like, I can't like you already invested too much in me.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know they
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
offer. Interesting.
Yeah. So they do like it's almost like a private school. They have like academic what is it? Not assistant.
Stipends. Stipends.
Well, well, they have like financial aid, financial aid.
Okay.
They have financial aid packages depending on what your families are making. So I knew my parents were gonna have to come out of pocket, and they had already came out of pocket my whole life. So I was like, I'm
Right.
not gonna do that to you. But bigger than that, I was just like, I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. I don't think this is the next chapter. And after that Princeton visit, I said, you know what? I don't think I want to go Ivy League, period. So I canceled my visit to Yale. And I had already been up to Yale. So I was like, I'm not gonna go visit. And the Vanderbilt coach had actually messaged me that week saying that, he can get me in for a last visit. Like I'm still on their board. They're just waiting to see if this guy above me commits. And if he doesn't commit, like it's my spot. So I'm still holding out, hoping like I can get this last minute, right? But the guy ahead of me commits. So I'm like, okay, Vanderbilt's off the table. And I go into this last week, and it's this last visit was like a week before signing day. Still no idea where I'm going, and I visit Navy. And I kid you not, there's a bridge as you're driving it into Annapolis. There's a bridge that you cross.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the campus in the sunlight. And as soon as I laid eyes on the campus, I said, "Yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be." And it's just a feeling I got. And
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my older brother before that visit. I was like, man, like, how did you know you were supposed to go to the University of Illinois? And he was like, I can't explain it. He was like, it's
Yeah.
just a feeling you get, it's an affirmation that you get. And I felt it as soon as I saw the campus. And I'm not gonna lie and say it's exactly somewhere where I wanted to go. Like no 18-year-old wants to hear that they're probably not gonna have a normal college experience. Um, but listening to all the adults in my life, all the teachers, they said, hey, this is an opportunity you can't pass up on. And I saw it as the opportunity to develop as a man, a leader, a
Right.
student, athlete, and on top of that, you get a chance to serve in the military. I was like, it's a package I can't turn down. So that's when I was like, all right, we're going to do this. The Naval Academy is the next step in the journey.
And just the legacy of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was founded in what, 1849 or something like that?
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. I
Um,
shouldn't probably, but
I mean, just the legacy of it, and just, the history, and just, even I got chills when I walked on it. It's just,
yeah.
it's just so impressive. Um, I read an interview with you where you talked about how you tried really hard to prepare yourself for Navy.
Mhm.
Spent
Yeah.
all summer really trying to prepare, working out everything,
Yeah.
but nothing prepared you.
No, it's different. And I think the biggest thing, I'm a decent swimmer, but I'm not
Mm,
a Navy swimmer. And so,
yeah.
like I said, my granddad, Navy chief, he's a fish in the water. So, leading into that summer, me and him every day, we're at the YMCA over by right by the Navy base in Millington, and we're
Hmm.
swimming every day, laps on laps on laps. And I'm running and I'm working out, trying to prep my body. But what I didn't realize was it's going to be a more challenge on me mentally than it would be
Yeah.
physically. And
Yeah.
so while physically I would say I was prepared, I was in pretty good shape, decent. Mentally, I just wasn't prepared for what I was going into. Like I remember plebe summer I day, induction day is what they call this, the first day of plebe summer, where you're going through and basically your whole identity is getting stripped away from you and
Yes.
being just like everybody else, right? Like you get the haircut, you throw the white works on, like you're carrying around this big bag, everybody's yelling at you and they're asking why you don't know all this stuff. And I'm like, I just got here, right? And it's like, you can't do anything right. And they're just yelling, yelling, yelling. And the way our day works is your parents drop you off in the morning, and then like probably around 6 p.m. we have our actual ceremony, and then you get to see your parents one more time, and then you march in and you're done. And I remember going back to my parents at 6 p.m. and I said, yeah, I'll probably be seeing y'all in a couple of weeks because there's no shot I'm staying here. I was like, this is ridiculous. I said, there's no way I'm about to put up with this. I got people yelling at me, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Like they didn't prepare me for this. And at first, I struggled. Like the first couple of weeks in basic training, I struggled. I wanted to go home. I didn't really think this was where I was supposed to be. But then when we got our first mail call, my dad sent me a letter, and it was just like he had actually wrote that letter in the hotel the night before they dropped me off.
Oh,
And
I'm gonna cry.
yeah, I know. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But I remember seeing him up writing it. I didn't really know what he was over there writing. And then like when I got the letter like second week of basic training, and it's like the letter starts off something like, as I'm writing this letter, like I see you over there laying in the bed, and I'm just thinking about, oh man, I'm actually getting emotional.
No.
He's like, he's like, I'm just thinking about, how far you've come, how proud I am of you. And just understand that this is not gonna be easy, but you're here for a reason. Like this is the part of the plan that
Yeah.
God has for you. And he writes in there, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope in the future. And reading that verse, I was like, okay, I get it. Like this
Yeah.
is the plan's not gonna be easy. Nothing in life worth having is gonna come easy, but this is
Right.
a part of the plan I have to trust in. And it's kind of gave me a new perspective to get through basic training and stop really thinking about how I was feeling in the moment, but to remember this is a part of the greater plan.
Right.
So yeah, that letter did it for me. I
Yeah.
still have it. So every now and then I actually read it, but yeah, that was what I needed.
The mind, I've listened to a lot of interviews from military guys and talked to them, and they do talk about how, and it's also in the sport. So mind over matter,
Yeah,
right? And it is your mind is the thing that's going to make you the strongest.
yeah, yeah,
Even when your body fails, it's your mind that's going to is going to, what's the word I'm looking for? Save you.
Yeah, yeah. Because your body, you're gonna feel the pain. You're gonna feel like you
Right.
can't go anymore. But honestly, it's whatever you can program up here. I
Right.
always tell people, taking take control of your thoughts, because your thoughts are gonna control your destiny,
Right.
right? Like the better you can shape your thoughts, the better you can change your perspective, the better you can
That's
see the
right.
world and to see the opportunities. And honestly, like your thoughts are gonna also come from your values, right? Like you're not just
Mm-hmm.
thinking aimless thoughts, like it's coming from your heart, honestly.
Right.
So whatever values you ingrain in yourself, is what you're going to think about. And then whatever you think about is how you're going to perceive the world, which is why it's so important to have a vision, to have a
Sure.
plan, have a direction. And I think that's what, when I read that Bible verse that my dad sent me and the letter that he sent me, it kind of reframed my vision to reshift my values
Right.
and my thoughts. So it definitely helped me out.
I do a lot of coaching and not sport coaching. I do a lot of career coaching, and I always start with the mindset because that is what's going to affect your actions
Yeah. Yeah.
regardless. And it's all of that is really cool. What I don't think many people understand unless they've been in the service, um, and maybe not even people in the service, but to go into the Naval Academy, both as a student, a Navy person, okay, and an athlete. Like it's hard enough to be a student athlete in a regular college
Yeah, for sure.
with a degree that, because a lot of the guests on here have talked about how, may have wanted to have a harder degree when they went to school, but the first like 3 months they realized they had to switch their major to something that was not mentally easier, but
Yeah.
the workload was not as hard, right?
Right.
And it's hard, they had to do that to make the sacrifice for their sport. But you're going into a college where you have to be elite at everything.
100%, no doubt.
And the structure that you guys have to have on a daily basis to have everything accomplished. That blows my mind.
Yeah,
Um,
it's different. And the Naval Academy is number one public school in the country, right? And I think you live four lives at the academy. I think you live an academic life, I think you live a military life, I think you live an athletic life, and then of course you have your social life. Like you're still
yes,
a college student, and you're expected to meet the demands of the academy. You're expected to be successful. Like like it's cream of the crop. Like you're
right,
going to school with the valedictorians, the team captains, like
right,
everybody's cream of the crop. This is the top 10%. And now you're all here going through the struggle, and it's tough, right? Like
mm,
it's almost set up for you to fail, right? Like they're building your muscle of resilience so that when you graduate, you commission, when you find yourself in some difficult situations, you're able to lead and direct the
right,
people that you're in charge of. What I found out, well, so for one, there's obviously different majors, but everybody's taking chemistry, everybody's taking physics, electrical engineering, thermodynamics, like all those classes required. Calc 1,
oh
Calc 2, Calc
my
3. Like,
gosh,
yeah, you have to pass those classes to graduate. So even if you're going to be a political science major like me, or English
hmm,
major or history major, we call them group 3 majors, right? That aren't STEM, you're still taking STEM classes. So it's going to be challenging. And I think I was taking 17 to 18 credits, maybe 19 to 20. I can't even remember, but I thought it was normal. Like every semester, it was like 18, 19 credits, sometimes 20. I'm like, okay, this is normal. But then I'm talking to some of my friends at other schools, and they're like, oh, no, I'm only taking 12.
no,
I'm only taking 13. And I'm like, wow. And on top of that, half their classes are probably online. And we're playing against these guys, right? Like we're in
hmm,
class all day, every day. Then we go to meetings, then we go to practice, then we got to go home, go back to the room and do homework. Like we're playing against guys that aren't dealing with 75%
right,
of the stuff we go through. So it's interesting and it's challenging, but what it teaches you at a young age is how to prioritize. Number
right,
one, you learn how to prioritize. And then number two, you learn how to manage your time based off of your priorities. And for me, what I found to be very useful was keeping a planner. And I had an academic planner, I had an athletic planner, and I had an extracurricular planner because I was also class president of my class and involved in some other
right,
extracurriculars. So that kept that in order. So every day, as I'm going through the day, I'm writing in my planners. I get back in my room, I'm looking at my planners, and I'm like, okay, what are the top things that I need to get done tonight? And then it's like, okay, what can I do tomorrow? What can I push off the next week?
right,
What can I honestly sacrifice? Because you can't get everything done. So I'm like,
no.
which class am I doing best in? Where can I take an L? All right, I got to take an L there, right? But I learned to prioritize and I learned to structure my life. And doing that and being able to get through rough and difficult times, I think has helped me a lot as an adult now to prioritize and keep the main thing the main thing, and also
Mhm.
just maximize the 24 hours that I get every day. So it's challenging, but I think it's a advantage that the academies give to the midshipmen to develop at a young age so that they can, be these mature leaders that we need in this world.
Well, and you're right. You said that it almost sets you up to fail,
Yeah.
but they need to know, they need to get out the people that are going to fail,
Trim the fat.
because you can't have people out in the field somewhere leading troops or whatever that don't have that in them
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
above and beyond. So
Because
so
it's
that's
life or death out there, like it's a life or death. There's no
yeah.
easy way to put it. Like
No, yeah,
the
you're
decisions
exactly
you make.
right.
Yeah. So you gotta build that mental toughness, you gotta build that mental fitness and that resiliency to be able to make difficult decisions in difficult
Right.
moments. And that's what the academy is designed to do. It's the number one leadership institution in the world.
Right. Um, so as you're going through your 4 years at the Naval Academy, what were I mean, obviously you knew you were going to go into the Navy after
Right.
you graduate. When were you even thinking pro football? Was that even an option in your head, or were you just trying to get through each year?
Yeah, so going to college, first of all, the goal was to get to college for free. And
Right.
so everything after that I saw as a bonus. And so once I
Okay.
got there, being on the team to me was a bonus, right?
Right.
Starting to play a little bit as a freshman, like I'm like, this is all bonus, right? But I'm a natural competitor. So once I get there and I start playing a little bit on like special teams, I'm like, man, I'm trying to get some defensive reps. Getting some defensive reps, I'm like, man, I'm trying to start. A starter, I'm like, man, I'm trying to be team captain. And so it's always this next level of wanting more, which I think can be a good thing and a bad thing in life. But I love the game. I love the game
Right.
of football. But to answer your question, the NFL wasn't really on my mind. Of course, it's a childhood dream starting to play football
Right.
at 5. You always see yourself one day being in the NFL, like every kid, right? They're like, oh, I love to be in the NFL. You're creating yourself on the video game. And I think what I had that initially sparked it was seeing my older brother make it. So my
Right.
older brother signed with the Arizona Cardinals from Illinois. This was probably I think this was my sophomore year. I want to say this was 2015 to high school. So
Right.
once I saw him do it, I'm like, okay, it's possible. Like if I put the work in, like it's there. But I always saw myself as being more than just a football player, which is where that orthopedic surgeon thing
Right.
came into play. I think the NFL thought came back into my head when COVID hit. We are coming off a very good season in 2019.
Hmm.
I had a pretty good year that year. My confidence was building. I was realizing, hey, I'm playing like, the AAC, the American Athletic, before we lost a lot of teams, you're going against a lot of NFL
Right.
talent. And
Right.
so we're playing NFL receivers. I'm thinking about Tulane with Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller at Memphis. I mean, all the Memphis receivers, Calvin Austin, all of them. And Houston had some, SMU had some. Like you're going against all these NFL receivers. And when you see yourself being able to compete with them a little bit, you start to be like, okay, I got the talent too to make it to that level. And we come off that 2019 season going 11-2, and then COVID hits. And I come back home and like I'm working out with my little brother who's at Louisville right now, 2 years younger than me. At the time he was at MTSU, but we're working out and I'm just falling in love with the grind and seeing him and pushing him and him pushing me. And like he had NFL aspirations from the jump. And I remember just one day we're in the garage. He's like, hey, we can make this happen. And I was like, man, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm about to graduate from
Right.
the academy, go do my service. Like, he's like, man, why not though? Like, we can make this happen. Like, we can go get it. There's no reason why we can't. We put the work in, And so that kind of had me thinking about it a little bit. But even then, going into my senior year, when COVID finally resolved and I'm going back to the academy, going into senior year, I'm like, this is probably gonna be my last year playing football. Like, all I want is to go out on a high note. But what
Right.
happens that senior year, I get elected team captain. I'm a finalist for the academic Heisman. And then midway through the season, I lose my starting job. And the rest of that season, I don't play as much as I would have liked to. And I start to not feel content with the
Right.
journey. I start to not be content with the career because I'm like, I dedicated too much time. It's not supposed to end like this. Like, obviously, I know it's not always going to end how we want it to,
Right.
but I said, there's no way this is supposed to be the end of it. And I remember like after the Army Navy game that year, going back home for Christmas and like talking to my dad and my brother. And I was like, what do y'all think about me trying to go to the NFL? And my dad told me, you never want to live with that regret of wondering what would have
Right.
happened if you did. And honestly, to me, knowing how much the odds were against me, like they already say less than 2%. But here I am, a guy that didn't play half of his senior year at the Naval
Right.
Academy, a team that just went like 3-7. Like this is yeah, I got a better chance of playing the lottery, but I didn't want the insecurities to stop me. And so I felt like it was a journey of putting faith over fear and like
Right.
committing myself to the process and living with whatever happened. But it was almost like I was trying to prove something to myself. Like
Right.
stop living in this, insecure mindset. Stop questioning your abilities. Like you can ball. It's time to show everybody else that you can. Block out the noise and go get after it. And that's what I did. And fortunately, it was able to work out in my favor.
So when did the NFL start taking notice, or did you start reaching out to them? What was that process like?
Yeah. So after I declared for the draft, that was like the end of December. I signed with the agent and I signed with the new agency. It was some people already knew they were starting up agency. So I knew that, this is their first year. They're basically underdogs. I'm an
Right.
underdog. Like I know they're gonna work for me. And so we get in, we sign, and they're like, okay, first step is COVID. So a lot of stuff was already canceled. And so they're like, first step is like we gotta get you to a showcase. We gotta get you in front of some scouts. And so they're emailing all these showcases, and all these showcases are like, who? Nah, we're good. Because they're getting all these big name prospects because all this other stuff's getting canceled. So
Right.
showcases that are usually small, they're getting these bigger prospects and they're getting all these scouts. They're like, nah, we don't have room for them. Don't have room for them. But then we ended up meeting somebody who knew somebody, and I got into the college gridiron showcase, which was in Dallas. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was in January, probably about 2 weeks after I declared. So I go down to Dallas for that showcase. And it was like a 2-day showcase. The first day was honestly just getting measured and interviewing with teams. And I remember being in the room. They had us in like a ballroom, and they would come over there. The scouts would walk back, call people's names or whatever. And it's like 100+ athletes in there. And I'm watching all of them get up, go talk to the team, get up, go talk to the team. And my name doesn't get called. And I was
No.
like, yeah, my name doesn't get called. And I'm talking to people at a table and I see them get up and go. And next thing I know, I'm like, man, I'm the only one who's been at this table the whole time, right? Like, and I get back to my hotel room that night and I'm just like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I was like, what have I done? This is a joke. I was like, man, no scout wants me. Um, I had people already questioning what I was doing, like own teammates and coaches, honestly. And I'm like, man, they're right. Like, I have no business doing this. But once again, I just had to focus on blocking out the noise. And
Right.
actually, so at the Naval Academy, everybody gets a sponsor family. And when I declared for the draft, my sponsor mom texted me after I made that post and was just saying how proud she was of me. And then she was like, I guess I'll be able to say, like, I remember when, basically saying, like, it's going to happen. And unfortunately, about a week before that showcase, my sponsor mom passed away. And so that message I got from her was the last time I spoke to her. And as I was laying in my hotel room that night, I got a text from my sponsor dad, and he was just telling me how much he was proud of me. And he was just like, my sponsor mom's name's Teresa. He's like, Teresa would be proud too. And it was in that moment that I kind of took myself out of my own emotions, and I was like, this is bigger than me. This is not about me. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna go out there on the field, and I'm gonna dedicate this to my sponsor mom.
Right.
And when I went out there, I played free, and I looked good in the drills. Was looked the par with the other guys, and I didn't even care if I was gonna talk to an NFL scout or not that day. I felt like I did what I needed to do, and I remember I was untying my shoes after, and I saw a scout walking my way, but there was some other players around me, so I thought they were talking to them, that they were going to talk to them. But then they came and talked to me. It was the Kansas City Chiefs, and we had a good conversation. That was the first scout I talked to, and then from there, the Hula Bowl, which was in Hawaii, was one of
Right.
the two All-Star games taking place that year. They had somebody drop out last minute, so they called my equipment manager at the Naval Academy to see if I would be a good fit. Equipment manager was like, yeah, like we definitely think he should, he's a good guy.
Right.
And then they called my agent, and so I ended up going to the Hula Bowl and get out there, get a chance to compete in front of some more scouts. But I'm still not really hearing any follow up, but I at least know my name's in the pool now.
Right. Right.
Um, and then after the Hula Bowl, this is still COVID. I knew the academy, some people, obviously, when people train for pro days, they're in like Florida, Cali, Texas.
Right.
That's what they're dedicating their lives to. I still had to graduate. I'm still taking 18 credits. I'm still working on my capstone.
That's right.
Yeah, I got to go back to school. But we're doing classes virtually. So I'm trying to ask the academy, like, because some people were already doing virtual classes from their sponsor houses, weren't even on campus. So I was like, hey, like, can I get an extra like month or so to do my classes virtually so I can go down in Georgia and like train in a facility? And they didn't approve it. And so I had to come back to the academy, and all of our facilities were shut down, couldn't leave campus. And so I'm literally, me and one of my teammates are getting virtual workouts from one of my strength coaches. And we're working out like outside, no access to the weight room, lifting in the abandoned track shed, got like mats stacked on top of them with a barbell. And on top of all that, we're doing all this, we're putting all this work in. We don't even have a pro day. So we don't even know if we're gonna have a pro day. And because of COVID, and honestly, I don't think they thought we even had a chance of making it. So they were like,
Right.
are we gonna waste our time with a pro day? But mainly I will go with because of COVID. And as it got close, I'm like, man, we still don't have a pro day schedule. And so I called down to actually my high school defensive coordinator, Coach Jordan, who played at Coach Chris Jordan, who played at Memphis. I was like, hey, can you reach out to Coach Silverfield to see if they'll let me come participate in their pro day? Because they do allow you to go to your hometown if your school is not hosting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I knew it was a long shot, but Coach Silverfield, man, great guy. We've been able to develop a relationship over these last few years. He allowed me to come down to the pro day. And I mean, when I went down there to Memphis, like, I felt like I was at home. Like, it didn't feel like I went to a in-conference rival school. Like, they treated me like I was one of their own. And I appreciate them for that for sure. They obviously had Kenneth Gainwell that year, so all scouts were at the pro day, and I was able to have a good showcase. And I say after that, we were probably talking to about 16 teams. And that was the first time along the whole journey, I was like, okay,
Wow.
I think I got a shot.
So you go into the draft and you put yourself in the draft. So what was your mindset that entire day? Or actually the NFL draft is like what, 6 days?
Yes, it's 4 days. So you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. No, 3 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was your mindset in the process through those few days?
Yeah. So I wasn't really expecting to get drafted. I was hoping to get signed. So that's kind
Right.
of, I knew there's a chance I could go in the seventh round, but I wasn't really expecting it. Definitely knew I wasn't going day one or day two. So that Thursday, I was working out during the draft. I was like, I don't even need to watch the first round. Like, I'm gonna work out. That Friday, I had some family come up. My little brother, mom, dad, all best friend from Memphis, all of them came up to DC. And so that Friday, I was hanging out with them during the second and third round. And then that Saturday, I had like a mini draft party at this little place in DC with some family, close friends. But like I said, I really wasn't expecting to get drafted. So, fourth round went by, fifth round went by, sixth round went by. But then when the seventh round, like, typically teams are calling your agent, even if they want to sign you as an undrafted free agent, like in the
Right.
sixth and seventh round. And like, we just kept getting closer and closer to the end of the draft. And that's when I started to feel some emotions, because I was like, I don't know if this is about to happen. And I was like, I got all these friends here, my family's here. And what did it for me was I looked over at my little brother. And when I looked at him, I felt like I was letting him down. And
Oh,
yeah. And when I looked at him, the tears just started getting in my eyes. And one of my friends saw it and gave me his sunglasses. And the like third to last pick went second to last pick, and they finally get up there with the last pick. And it's the Buccaneers. And they announced that they're taking Grant Stewart from Houston. And after that, like, tears just started flowing down my
oh,
face. And my cousin grabbed me. We walked out the restaurant, and we're walking down the street. This is my cousin that lives in DC, basically like an uncle to me. We're walking down the street, and he's just telling me, like, like, I'm proud of you. You've
right.
accomplished more than people could ever imagine. Like, there's no reason for you to hang your head. What we always say, like, just ask God to do his will and to help us understand. And we're walking down the street, and I'm like, man, I'm boohooing, I'm sick, I'm embarrassed. More than anything, I'm embarrassed.
Oh, no.
And I felt like, I got all these people here for me, and
Yeah.
it didn't happen. And by the time we get to the end of the street, I get a call from my agent, and he says, at first he says the Kansas City Chiefs want to sign you as an undrafted free agent. And then he calls back and he's like, hey, the Buccaneers want to sign you as well. And I'm like, man, let's do it. Like, let's go to Tampa. And like, I just start, my
Okay,
friends,
why pick Tampa over Kansas City?
they had just won a Super Bowl. I'm thinking
Okay.
Florida, yeah. And my dad actually played with the coach that was on the staff. So
Okay.
like
Okay.
having a mutual connection down there was good. So yeah, I just felt like it was just a better fit at the time. And my friends could see my face like when I was on the phone. And I was like, oh snap, like what happened? What happened? And next thing you know, you see all my friends running out the restaurant and they just all pick me up and stuff. And I remember just hugging my mom and she was crying and she was like, you did it. You did it. I was like, no, we did it. And then I went over to my dad and my dad, I could just see because they since I was 5, right? Like they've seen the whole
Right.
journey. They've seen all the
Right.
ups and downs, and they see a kid that was scared of contact and scared to tackle, and a kid that spent the long nights when I was at Navy, calling them, crying about my situation, and just
Right.
letting out how everything's going, how disappointed I was, and they just kept telling me, stick with the process, stick with the process, stick with the process, and for the process to work like that, and to actually get the experience reaping that harvest. um I mean, I can't even imagine how that felt for them because I know how it feels for me. And it's a moment I never forget. It'll be a moment I never forget.
I didn't know this episode was going to be so emotional today. um, so so as you head to Tampa, or did you headed to Tampa, right?
So
Right
yeah,
after
so
that.
after you sign a contract, the first thing you do is rookie minicamp.
Okay.
After that, so that was like 2 weeks after. So I had to finish my finals.
Right.
So sign an NFL contract, and then I'm back in school on Monday to
Got
take the
it.
final. I'm taking the final and stuff. I'm like, man, don't nobody else have to deal with this right now. But yeah, so I go back to school literally the next day, and honestly, the amazing thing about the academy is like you're just another person.
You
So
are. They keep it real, don't
yeah,
they?
you're just another person. So here I am, like just signed an NFL contract, and I'm back in my uniform, going to class, talking to my classmates like nothing just happened.
So you go to training camp, and then when did you find out exactly that the Department of Navy was not going to
Yeah.
let you pursue the football career?
Right. So background information on that. So obviously there's a policy by President Trump implemented at the time that allowed Academy athletes to delay their commissioning because everybody has a 5-year service
Right.
commitment. But he allowed people to delay their commissioning, pursue athletic opportunity if they have it, and then fulfill their commitment on the back end. And so the year before that was the first year of that policy being implemented. We had Malcolm Perry that ended up getting drafted by the
Right.
Dolphins that ended up using that policy, played like 3 or 4 years. He's actually back in the Marine Corps now. I know Army had a guy named Elijah Riley, had a couple other guys, and the Air Force had a guy. So the policy was already being used. And even when I was coming out, there were 3 guys from Air Force and a guy from Army that were also using the policy.
Right.
So I go down to rookie mini camp. Things go well down there. Being an undrafted guy, I knew I need to make an impression quick. So first practice, I got a pick six, and confidence is building. And for the first time in a long time, I'm having fun playing the game of football again. And I just feel free, and I feel like I'm living on cloud nine. Like this is my life is like the picture of my life at this moment is
Right.
like picture perfect. I would have never dreamed of it. And so I'm down there a couple weeks, and then I fly back for graduation. So the Naval Academy, we do a whole commissioning week, so it's a week of things. So I fly back to Annapolis, and I had to give a speech at the graduation and present Vice President Kamala Harris with a gift. So
Because let's say you're the class president, right?
yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was no missing graduation. I needed to be back for that. So I fly back that Sunday night and get back there that Sunday. That Monday, I go through the day's festivities. Monday night, I'm back in my sponsor's house, and I get an email from our commandant saying that he wants to meet with me tomorrow. And on the email list, I also see my battalion officer, who's my representative, and I see I have a classmate that's trying to go play in the MLB. They're
Hmm.
drafting until like the end of June though, but he's trying to pursue it. So he's on the email with his representative, and I'm already like, yeah, this can't be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
No meeting is good when you have to
yeah,
go in front. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, this can't be good. And I had the academy had sent my package off already, and they had already given me like the security that everything was gonna be okay, like everybody's gonna approve or
Right.
whatever. So this was I'm not thinking anything, but I at the same time like this isn't good. And so we get to that meeting that next morning, and he sits us down at the conference table, and he goes, I called you in here because the Secretary of the Navy has declined your package. Like you're not gonna be able to go play football. And I'm like, I'm like, huh?
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to go play. I'm sorry, man. Like, you're gonna commission with your classmates. I was just like, is there no appeal process? Like, did he give you a reason? Because I'm just like, no, I'm just like, no shot. After everything I just went through, I'm just like, no way this is
Right.
happening to me right now. Like, there's no way this is really gonna be the thing that stops me. Like, I would have rather the team not pick me up than you
Right.
get a taste of your childhood dream. Like, you get a taste of being a part of that less than 2%. Like, this isn't something that just happens, right? And then you have somebody that you've never met before not allowing you to use a policy that's meant for this.
And
Uh,
that has been like Keenan Reynolds. He was
Keenan
drafted.
Reynolds did it,
Yeah, he
yeah,
played
yeah.
played too.
Keenan
Like,
Reynolds played with the, I think he got drafted by the Ravens and then hopped
so
around.
it's not like, you were doing something no one
Yeah,
else has ever done.
correct. I was not trying to be a pioneer by any
Right.
means. And so what really did it for me though was when I got out that meeting, I texted the guys that I knew from Air Force and Army that were coming out the same year as me. I was like, hey, like I just had this meeting because I knew they were doing their commissioning week
Right.
too. I was like, I just got denied though. Did same thing happen to y'all? Like, what's going on? And they were like, nah, like I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we just met with our people, everything's good to go. We got the go ahead, they're full behind it. And I was like, what?
Wow.
I was like, okay, this is the issue because here we are. We have 5 people trying to do the same thing. 4 people get yes, 1 person gets to no. And I'm just like, why me? You know, I'm like, the way my
Right.
life has been going this past year, I'm like, can I please catch a break? But so we get that news. I call my agent, call my family, and my agent's like, okay, like, let's not graduate on Friday. Like, because once you commission, you're on the big Navy's rules. I was like, nah, that's not the route we're gonna
You
go.
can't do that.
Commissioning from the academy is the most important thing out of all
Right.
this. You know, as much as I would love to go play in the NFL, like I'm not about to be that kind of guy.
Right.
But I was like, I don't really know what we can do right now. But what I do know is I don't want to bring any extra attention to this because I don't want this week to be about me. I want the week to be about my classmates.
Right.
And so we keep it low radar. And the only people who know are the people close to me. Everybody else thinks I'm about to go back down to Tampa after this week. So I'm almost living a double life that week.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, how's Tampa? Like, what's when you going back down there? And, you know, I'm acting like everything's okay when on the inside it's not. And so I go through that week, get to graduation on Friday. And honestly, that day was supposed to be like so amazing for me. And it still was a great day, but it was kind of painful. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of painful. And it took a lot of strength to get up there and give a graduation speech, knowing that my world was crumbling down on the inside. But once again, it was bigger than me. Great opportunity. Got to meet Vice President Kamala Harris, got to deliver the speech. And then after that, it was time to get to work with trying to get the situation turned around. And
Right.
so we tried to do some behind the scenes work with different military officials, governmental officials. Couldn't get anything done. And so at this point, I'm missing all the OTAs, missing all the rookie workouts. And then mandatory minicamp comes around June 8th. And I know, like, if I'm not down there by then, like, I can get cut, right? Like, if I show up then, like, you can get cut, you can get fined. And so I told my agent, I said, hey, look, man, we got to put out a statement. So because I'm already getting DMs from reporters and stuff like, hey, where are you? Like, this is like, I thought you were
Yeah.
going to be missing 1 week OTAs. Is everything good? And then I put the statement out and I tell them, like, hey, like, you know, my package got denied. At this time, I can no longer be a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. Hopefully we can get this turned around in enough time for me to come back down and compete in training camp.
And things pretty much took off from there once that went public. I remember watching you did an interview on CNN with Don Lemon, and I kind of followed all of that. How long was it before the Navy changed the decision?
Yeah, so that was June 8th when that statement came out, June 8th or June 7th. Media went crazy for like the next 2-3 weeks. It was exhausting. It was nothing that I expected. And I think what did it was Senator Marco Rubio from Florida, like the last week of June, he like posted that he was going to be writing a letter to President Biden. And I think that got President Biden's attention on it. And he kind of just went down the chain of command from there, like, hey, like, can we do something about this? Can we get this figured out? And then on July 7th, I got a call from the Secretary of Defense saying that they were going to reverse it and I'll be able to go back down to training camp. So it's like it's probably about a month process. I think the biggest significance is I missed OTAs, rookie workouts, mandatory minicamp, right? Like, as an undrafted free agent, I needed all of that. And being from the Naval Academy, our facilities aren't top notch, our resources aren't top notch. And so for the first time in my life, I was on an even playing field when I was down there in Tampa. And I could see the benefits of that,
Right.
like from the health, the recovery, so it was tough. Like by the time we were reaching the end of June, honestly, in my mind, I was like, I don't even want to go back down there because like I already had an upfield battle, but now my battle went from this to that.
Right.
Like, I
Right.
would have to be perfect when I get back down there. And not only that, everybody kind of knows who I am now. The first time I went down there, nobody knew who I was. I was just an undrafted guy from
Right.
Navy. Now I'm the guy who received presidential permission to come back down to Tampa
Yeah.
Bay. So yeah, it was the pressure. The pressure was tough. And honestly, I'm not gonna say I didn't want to go back down there, but it just wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal for me.
Um, how long then was it before you, or did you make that decision to end your football career? When did that come about? The official,
Yeah.
I'm not going to play football anymore.
Yeah, so I went back to training camp. So I reported, I think, on July 15th. And the first couple weeks of training camp, I struggled bad. Like I looked horrible. And I was so frustrated. And I was getting back to my room every night. And it's like the NFL is a job and it's a
Right.
business. And so what I'm thinking every day is like, man, am I about to get cut? I'm like, they're gonna cut me. Like they don't need to keep me here, right? Like it's just I have all this pressure on me. And it wasn't until I was able to like refocus myself and remember like this isn't about me, like just to put my attention back on God instead of all the outside noise and trying to please the
Right.
people, that I was able to get grounded again. And I finally, probably about the third or fourth week of camp, I started looking like myself again. And I started making plays and I started building my confidence. And I'm like, okay, like we have a shot, like I'm
Right.
my feet back under me. I'm like, we have a shot. And we go into that first preseason game against the Bengals, and parents come down to the game, and I have a great game. I finished second on the team with tackles. Like my
Look
parents
at
hadn't had
you.
a chance, I know. My parents hadn't had a chance to see me play a lot that year because of COVID, my senior year. So like this is their first time seeing me play in a while. And like they just see me out here coming up and making tackles, even though I was never a guy that liked to tackle. And they're like, man, like you look good. Like we think this is gonna happen for you. Like we're at brunch that next morning talking, and they're like, yeah, we think you're gonna have a good career. Everything's gonna be good now. Like this is I'm glad you stuck with it. Glad you went through the process. Everything is just going to be a part of your story. And I take them to the airport, drop them off, drive them back to the team hotel. And as I'm driving to the team hotel, I get a phone call from the Buccaneers. Um,
No.
and I'm like, man, it's Sunday. This is off day. That's kind of weird. And I answer the call. They're like, hey, what are you up to, Cameron? It's like nothing much. Just drop my parents off at the airport, heading to the team hotel to watch some film, get a nap, whatever. And they said, well, there won't be any need for you to do that. We decided to release you today. You'll no longer be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Less than 12 hours after the game. And you talk about you talk about life being like, you're for the first time in my football career, I played a game to where I didn't feel any external pressure. I played a
Right.
game where I felt free. Like it wasn't really any self-confidence or insecurity things going on. Like I felt like I was having fun. Like it
Right.
felt I was like, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful because that was my last football experience and I have no regrets with it. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, like my mom always said, life's not fair. I'm like this,
Yeah.
I'm like, they know good and well I haven't been down here. And so for me to be where I am, you just think that people are gonna make special
Yeah.
exceptions
They
for you, but
don't.
nah, that's not life. It's business, right? It's all about business. And I'm just like, man, what was the point of going through all this if I'm just gonna get cut
Yeah.
after the first game? And I remember just going home after that and being home for about a month and just struggling. I was struggling. Didn't want to be around anybody. Didn't want to be around the game
Yeah.
of football. My agent, they were talking to some teams. They were like, hey, like, but we gotta wait till after the preseason, kind of see what we got. I was just like, man, do I really want to keep going through this? I was like, do I want to keep living my life like contingent on the decisions of some other people? Um, and then I just started to reflect. I was like, did I get everything that I wanted out of the game of football? And as I thought back to it, I'm like, man, the NFL, making it to the NFL, that was never in the script. Being a
Right.
team captain, that was never in the script. Being a starter for over 20 games on a top 25 program, that wasn't in the script. Like that was all bonus. You know what I'm saying? And here I am, healthy, like no injuries, no major injuries
Right.
during my whole football career. I'm healthy. I experienced more than some people ever will in a game of football. I said, like, how much more do I need? I'm like, is like this is contentment, you know? And I start speaking to like some different schools around the city of Memphis during this
Mhm.
time. And I just start to fall in love with it. You know, I start falling
Yeah.
in love with telling my story about the adversity and that life, you know, is about the journey and not the destination. And I had to separate myself from being a football player because I knew even if I was to keep pursuing it, the game's not going to last forever. It got an
No.
expiration date. And so I would rather walk away from it on my own terms than to continue in this continuous cycle, you know, of chasing this thing when at the end of the day, I got all I needed, right?
Right.
Like obviously I still missed the game, but I got what I needed. Like me going back to play football now and trying to pursue the NFL, it wouldn't be because like I really want to play football. It would be because of the status and it would be because of the money. Like that's
Right.
a honest realization that I had to have with myself. Is like, do I really want to play football again? And the only way I would know that's a yes is if I'm willing to commit to the grind. But if I can't commit to the grind of being a professional athlete, then I can't get back on that field. I
Right.
can't cheat the game like that. And that was an honest conversation I had to have with myself. And it was tough. It was very, very tough, but it's been beneficial and it's been worth it. And I don't regret my decision at all. And I'm thankful for everything that came with it.
You know, for you, if we talk about when your fifth quarter started, it kind of started several times.
Yeah.
It did, and it was like, and it's like you'd come up and they'd push you back down, and you come
Yeah.
up. Um, how has this whole experience changed your view of football?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, for one, it's not a guarantee. So I
Mhm.
coach high school football out here in Washington, and I always tell my players, I'm like, it almost it frustrates me when I see people taking the game for granted. Like it
Right.
frustrates me when I don't see people giving it everything they got. When I see people taking a day off, taking a rep off, because I'm like, look, man, like one day you're gonna look up and all you're gonna have are your memories. Like all you're gonna be able
Right.
to do is look back. I'm like, don't waste this opportunity. Don't take this for granted. Like you're not guaranteed for to this. Like the game of football is not guaranteed to you. Lord forbid you can go out next play and get a season-ending injury, and
Right.
you know what I'm saying. So I think my perspective now with the game of football is really like seeing how much of it is like a blessing. Like whenever you get an opportunity, and I tell my little brother this all the time as he's in his last year at Louisville, I'm like, look, man, every day is not gonna be great, every day is not gonna be bad, but like you gotta appreciate every day. Any day you get a chance to strap that helmet up, clip them shoulder pads in, and lace them cleats, like you need to be thankful and you need to be grateful for it because the game is not guaranteed and the game is not forever. So I think my perspective of the game now is like it's a gift, you know, and I always appreciated the game of football. I always saw it as a vehicle, but I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like I didn't just expect that next year for the next season to come around and that I'll be playing and be healthy.
Right.
But like I said, never experienced a major injury. So since I was 5, every fall on Saturdays, I was playing football. And then once I got to high school, it was every Friday. I got back to college, it was every Saturday. There was
Right.
not a fall where I wasn't on the football field. There was not a summer where I wasn't working out for football. And now for the first time in my life, I'm not strapping up the pads. And I was like, wow. Like to think that I was entitled to the game, to think that the game was something that just happens. I'm like, man, the game is a gift. And like one day it's going to stop giving, you know? So appreciate it while you have it. So that's kind of the perspective that I look at it now is like it's a gift and it needs to be cherished and appreciated.
So obviously, you had a job when football was no longer an option.
Yeah.
So you are in the Pacific Northwest, just
Right.
outside of Seattle. Um, a lot of the guys on here, and some of the women too, athletes, they've talked about one of the hardest things for them after they stopped playing was the workouts. Like they were so structured around the workout, and suddenly they're like, I don't know what to do. They either just stop or they're looking for something that, I had one guy, he said, he missed, hitting people on in the football field, and now he's like, what do I do with all that energy, and some of them have talked about that's really the hardest part was trying to find something to fulfill or how to adjust to that. So what's it been like for you? Because you played football all those years, but then in the Navy, you also had all that workout regimen too.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I don't think they make you go out and work out as much. So how has that affected you, and what do you do now for that?
Yeah, it's tough. And it's honestly something I'm still figuring out. Like, you don't realize how disciplined you are with your workouts because you're playing a sport until you don't have a sport anymore. And it's up to you to go get to the gym. And you're not training to become a better athlete so that you can perform on the field. You
Right.
gotta find a new why. You got to find a new purpose. And for me, I mean, it's wanting to be a healthy individual because I think when you're physically healthy, mentally, you're healthy. And
Hmm.
so I just think it's a discipline thing. Like for me, being able to work out consistently is a way of cashing in on discipline. It's a way of strengthening
Right.
my discipline. So that's kind of the value I see in it now. And I still train like an athlete. You know, I still do the same workouts I used to do in college. I coach high school football, so I get out there with them when I can. It keeps me moving. But I
Right.
think training like an athlete keeps that competitive mindset. But it's tough. It is tough to stay in the gym. I've been very up and down with my journey. So I've been the heaviest I've been since I played. Got back down on my playing weight. Got back up to the heavy, fluctuating in between. So I do have a goal of getting back down to my playing weight by the end of this year. I'm on that path. But it's tough. You know, you just got to find a why. You got to find like, why do you want to work out now?
Yeah.
I don't have to squat 400 pounds anymore, right? Like
Oh
I don't
my
need to
God.
be, yeah,
Oh my
I don't
God.
need to be trying to kill myself anymore in the gym, right? Like honestly, I'm just trying to look physically fit, right? So
Right.
it's like you got to change the way you work out because now you're not pushing your body so that you can stay healthy through physical contact, right? Like you're pushing your body so that you can be a healthy, functioning human being.
Right. Right.
It's just a different approach to it, and it's tough, but you just got to find out what works for you.
So, really quickly, let's talk about your book. So, what called you to write the book? Was it just part of the process to help you kind of adjust to everything?
Yeah, I was searching for answers. I was searching for answers. I had just moved out here to Washington, and I still, first of all, I moved to Washington State in the midst of all this. When I was like going through it, I'm like, why am I out here in Washington? Like, I have no
Because it's
family out here,
cold. It is
cold,
cold.
dreary, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, I have no family around here, right? Like it's just me. Like I knew a couple people, but it was tough. I was in isolation, I would say. But I think the isolation gave me the ability to reflect. I think the
Hmm.
isolation gave me the ability to think and just kind of start to reposition my life. It gave me the ability to sit still, get out of the spotlight, right?
Right.
Get away from everything and be like, okay, what is it that you want in life? But I knew that I would never be able to move forward if I kept looking backwards. And so I needed to get closure from everything that happened with football. And so I started the journal on the journey from when I was 5 years old all the way up to that moment I got the phone call from the Buccaneers. And as I was journaling and just, it started off with me just looking for like different events, right? Like when I was
Hmm.
5, my first football practice, losing a race, and my dad telling me at a young age, like, you're not always going to win. Like there's going to be moments where you lose, but it's in those moments that you lose that your true character is going to be revealed. And I remember, I'm writing about this. I'm like, dang, I do remember that conversation. Like, wow, that's very applicable to where I am right now. And so I just keep doing that for different chapters in my life with the game of football. And as I'm journaling, I'm like, man, I got all these lessons. I said, somebody else can probably benefit from reading this as
Hmm.
well. And I journal and I get all the way up to the point I get cut by the Bucks and how I start speaking to schools. And I was speaking to this one school and there's a group of kids that had been involved in the juvenile court system, transitioning back into society, and just kind of hearing about their story and their journey and how they made these decisions and just hoping that their past wasn't indicative of their future. I was like, man, there's value in that. Like there's value in everything that happens in your
Yes.
life. And that's when I was like, the values in the journey and not the destination. Like it's a continuous process of developing and growing that makes life beautiful. It doesn't have to
Right.
be perfect, right?
Right.
Like, and that's where I had it messed up. I had the value of my life being in positions, like being as a football player, being in the NFL, like getting this accolade, this achievement. And so when those things left, I lost my value as a person because that's where my value was. But I had to realize, the value in life is in a purpose. And I think that we all are called to do a purpose on earth during our time here. And that's where our value is. And in order to carry out that purpose, you have to be continuously developed and you have to go through the process. And that's the journey. It's going to
Right.
be ups, it's going to be downs. But seeing the value in that, seeing the value in that development allows you to carry out the purpose that you have. And that's where the value of life is. And nobody can take that away from you. And I think that is why I've been able to be content with everything that's happened and been able to keep moving forward in life after life after football.
Right. What you just said, it's something that I speak on as well. When I was in Houston, I worked for a nonprofit, and we gave free job search classes, but these were engineers that had been laid off by the oil and gas industry. And so I had people in there with master's degrees, PhDs, patents. They were experienced, they were educated, they didn't know how to get a job. But the thing was, when they lost their job, they felt like they lost their value.
Mm,
And I'd be looking at these people and I'm like, you know more than I could ever think to know, right? You've got the experience, you've got the education. Why do you think you have no value? And that's because they tied up their value with their job title.
mm,
And I remember I started telling them, and they thought I was crazy. And some of them got mad at me, but I'm like, be grateful you're in job search right now because you have the opportunity to recalibrate yourself, to figure out what it is you want to do now. And some of them would start telling me, well, I'm not sure I want to go back into engineering, or I don't want to go back in the oil and gas field,
yeah.
and it became this thing where I was trying to get them to appreciate who they were becoming,
Mhm.
that it's not about getting that job and end up in something that you're miserable in again. It's
Right.
about finding out what makes you happy and who
Yeah.
you are as a person. I'm like, nobody can take that from you.
You do it.
Um, what do you think your purpose is now?
Yeah, and I think what you just said is so beautiful because people attach their identity to
They
positions,
do. They do.
to occupations, to seasons of their life, right? But positions change, occupations change, seasons change. We all go through transitions, right? And
Hmm.
so when you attach yourself to something temporary, when you lose it, who do you become? Like, who are you, right? If you're
Right.
only somebody when you're successful, then who are you when you're unsuccessful? And that's why I'm so big on purpose. And I think that's like you said, nobody can take that away. And once you find that purpose that makes you happy, like that's where your identity is. It's not necessarily what you do, it's like who you are.
Right.
And so my purpose, honestly, is helping people to discover that, helping people to have a positive perspective of adversity that they
Hmm.
experience in life, to see the value in that, that then contributes to them being able to develop and discover their purpose. Because I think that's what God took me through. Like as I
Right.
reflect, I remember wondering, like, why would you take me through all these ups and downs? Like, why would you
Right.
allow me to lose my starting job my senior year and then go through this whole underdog process, get an NFL contract just for me to get denied and then have to go through all that media to get back on the team
Right.
to get cut after the first preseason game. And it's because he had to teach me, like, yo, I will let you experience your childhood dream, like something that you have cherished your whole life. I will let you get to the pinnacle of the game of football that you've dedicated 18 years of your life to. I want you to experience inking that multi-million-dollar contract and experiencing all the attention you get and being in the same locker room and on the same field as Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, like these NFL. Like I want you to go get a taste of it. I want you to experience it, but then I'm gonna take it away from you before it takes you away from me, right? And
Ah,
so when he took it away from me, when I was no longer a football player, I realized that you cannot attach your value to temporary occupations. It's
right.
what you do, it's not who you are. Even in the military, I see it all the time. It's like, I love the military. I love my job. I love working with my sailors. I love the mission. I love, defending America. It's what I do.
Right.
It's not who I am. Yeah, I wear US Navy across my chest, but my last name's over here as well, right? Like
Right.
I swore an oath and I'm gonna protect and defend the Constitution, so that everybody has the same pursuit, the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all that, right? But that's what I do. I will never attach myself to that because one day it's going to be time to take the uniform off. And if I attach myself to that
Yes.
uniform, when that uniform comes off, I'm going with it. Right.
Right.
And I've already
Hmm.
experienced that once before. I'm not going to experience it again. And so my purpose now is to help other people see that before they necessarily go through it. Like I can't stop you from going through it. You need to go through it, but I at least want to help you have a perspective to where when you're going through the difficult moments, you can see that maybe it's not hurting you, but it's developing you.
Right.
Like maybe it's not punishing you, but it's helping you grow. Like maybe there's a lesson in that you can learn to be able to get to the next place that you need to be to execute your purpose at a higher level, right? Like
Right.
maybe the things that happen to us happen for a reason. And so I spend my time doing that with my sailors in the
Hmm.
Navy. I try to motivate them, inspire them to be their best. And then I'm right now, I travel around to a lot of high schools across the country. And I mean, the goal is to, go from high schools to colleges to business and then one day hopefully be speaking in front of like NFL teams. I think that'd be full circle for me.
I I do too. I
Right
think
now.
that would be great. Speak for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like
Yeah, that'd be full circle. That'd be full circle. They have to make sure they know that, like, hey, this is a gift. This
yes.
is not who you are. It's what you do right now. Never, take it for granted, but do understand that you connect yourself with a higher purpose, because one day it's gonna be time to hang up the cleats, put the
Hmm.
shoulder pads into the locker. You're gonna get the same phone call I got, and it's gonna be time to transition. And are you gonna be ready when you get that call?
Or they don't even get a call.
Yeah.
Because some of the guys on here have talked about the just waiting
Yeah. Yeah.
and the call never comes.
Mm.
And, nothing is ever easy. The end of something is never easy. So, one last question. If we could go back, if you could go back and talk to a 9-year-old Cameron, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah, I think about this all the time because people always ask me if I have any regrets or if I go back, would I do anything different? And if I could go back to my 9-year-old me, I'm playing little league football and then um, appreciating the game. I would just tell them, man, look, appreciate the process,
Right.
enjoy the process. Don't wish for the next year. Don't wish for 5 years from now. Like, embrace where you are right now, the good, the bad, soak it
Right.
all in, see the value in it, but enjoy it, cherish the
Mhm.
process, because there's gonna come a time in your life, where all you have when you look back are the memories, and you don't want to spend that time looking back, wondering what would have happened if I would have
Right.
just cherished it a little bit more. You know what I mean? So I tell them, hey, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. Just cherish the process more. Just appreciate it.
You said something that, you know, I've had people ask me if I have regrets. And what I tell them, and what I tell myself really is, I like who I am now.
Mhm.
I like who I am today.
Mhm.
And if I went back and changed anything, I would not be the same person. And actually, one of my best friends, she actually said that to me a long time ago. She was like, I like who you are. And if you had changed something, you wouldn't be who you are.
Mhm.
And I've always taken that perspective of, I like who I am. And, all we can do is make better decisions going forward, right?
Right.
Learn from our decisions in the past and go forward and make the best of that. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at CK3 The Thrill. That's CK3 THETHRILL. That's my Instagram and my Twitter.
Okay.
Facebook is Cameron Kinley. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't do a good job of keeping my LinkedIn up to date. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You don't, because I went on there because I'm going to tag you on everything. But I'll
Yeah,
put all the links into the show notes.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'm going to give you a little coaching advice. LinkedIn is a really good place to get
I
speaking
know. I need
opportunities.
to. I need to do better. I need to do better. I was just talking to one of my friends about this yesterday. I said I need to do better on LinkedIn.
You do, because that I'm telling you, that
So
is it.
I'm gonna work on it. That
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 is
just
it.
inspired me. I'm gonna go work on my profile tonight.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. I'll be checking on back on that. Okay. So, reminder, Cameron's book, Identity Finding Purpose Through the Storm, is on sale now. You can buy it in paperback and hardback on Amazon.com. Is it anywhere else?
So Amazon.com right now. Once I finish getting my website up, I will be offering signed copies on my website. So
Excellent.
wait for
E-
that.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. That's it for us today. Cameron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you all for listening, especially if you've made it all the way to this part of the show. I so appreciate all your support. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch. My mantra is like, share, and review. Follow us on social media at 5THQRT Podcast. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week.